Hi folks, my name is Ron, and this time we'll be presenting an article called The Third Commandment Observed, which just so happens to be our earliest Yahweh discovered to date. Yes, with a date of 1446 BC, discovered here. The first complete Yahweh discovered here in October of 2021, and then soundly translated shortly after in the spring of 2022. And another complete Yahweh was also discovered nearby in 2023. And this is now being presented November 24th of 2024. As a little prelude, we have our earliest Hebrew Lord, saying, "To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. And at that time people began to call upon the name of the Lord." And here's our earliest New Testament of Romans. "For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, bestowing his riches on all who call on him. For everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved." Now, to begin with, first off, I'm not the least bit Hebrew and never really studied it seriously, nor am I the least bit Jewish as far as subscribing to their traditions is concerned. Nor am I all that zealous for their present day Mount Zion, for all their messed up Temple on the Mount garbage, including some stupid red heifer sacrifice. No, certainly not as zealous as some Zionists are, though I have never actually been to Jerusalem, yet I could be persuaded. In the meantime, you'll find me perfectly content in being a Gentile, perfectly content in being a Reformed Christian, perfectly content in being a rebuilt Jerusalem right here in Canada, in the Great White North, since Jerusalem was surely builded upon our clouded hills as well, and not just in England's green and pleasant land. Yet, despite all that apparent indifference of mine, I have been to the holy Mount Sinai of the Hebrews, the mountain most believed to be a mere metaphor. I have been to the mountain, as a certain Martin Luther King once boasted. However, I have been there literally, unlike that metaphorical king. A mountain at which I saw the coming of the Lord in a very true, literal sense. Which is to say, it was near that mountain that I discovered primal artifacts, numerous Hebrew writings, including writings with the Lord's name in it. Hebrew writings more ancient than any discovered to date, but more so Hebrew writings more important than any discovered to date. More important in terms of seeing the first commandment written by a Hebrew for the very first time. Considerably more important than seeing where the second commandment was historically violated, with this third commandment being an awfully close second in importance. Ancient writings that most Hebrews consider to be little more than pious fiction. A fiction created out of thin air in order to instill a repressive social ethic. So why should they believe in all that science fiction then, huh? If that's all it is anyway. However, in this present article, I will speak to yet another artifact that I discovered there. An artifact more glorious than any discovered to date. Far more glorious than that Jerusalem anthem alluded to above. More glorious in the sense of a proper eulogy, in the sense of the third commandment properly observed in the Bronze Age, with our messed up nuclear age using the divine name all too flippantly, having zero credibility in all things theonomy. With this grand artifact of ours being a monumental eulogy to our great Creator and Sustainer, rather to some facile, green and pleasant land. And unlike that other glorious eulogy that I spoke to earlier, this particular eulogy was authored by a singular individual, authored by a highly erudite individual, by a tremendously pious individual, an individual determined to get the name of God exactly right and to not be flippant in the least of all swearing by his name. A eulogy indicating his great thankfulness of being kept secure in his Creator's hand. Yahweh sustaining him and his family through some epic sort of crisis, right along with his donkey and his stupid tent. A eulogy authored around the very same time as that collective eulogy was authored by over 100 women, authored around 7 kilometers away. But that birthing billboard wishes to tribute to his Creator attribute and not to his Sustainer attribute, which is something else altogether. So, with that profound authorship and theism now in view, let's give some examination to the Hebrew literacy of that era. A Hebrew literacy previously unknown to academia, predating all known Paleo-Hebrew by several centuries. A Hebrew rightfully known as Proto-Hebrew.